GMs for Hire.
Welcome back to another episode of GMs for Hire. I am Jamil. With me is RJ. We're continuing breaking down the rest of the NFL divisions one by one. If you've been with us this far, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're glad you guys are still here, still kicking with us. And today we're breaking down the AFC North division, a huge division in the NFL this season, one of the best, if not the best, arguably. There's a lot of great talent in this division, multiple playoff teams. So I'm excited to talk about it. We got the Steelers, the Browns, the Ravens, and the Bengals. RJ, how do you feel about this division this season?
Man, it's crazy how things can change, right? You mentioned the Browns. How crazy is that? A couple years ago, we're talking about the Browns can't win a game, and now they might have the best roster in the entire NFL. So it's crazy. That rebuild in Cleveland has been awesome. Pittsburgh, we'll see how they, are they going to decline? We'll see. Baltimore, they got some injuries they got to deal with, and Cincinnati's just young. They got to see how they can grow.
Yeah, there's a lot of different storylines in this division. We mentioned the Browns. They used to be the laughingstock of the league. Now they have arguably one of the best rosters in the league. They're very, very deep. This team's definitely going to challenge for the division. The Ravens, they still return a great team. They still have Lamar Jackson, but there's just, can they do a couple different things to get over that hump to get them to some playoff wins into a Super Bowl? And the Steelers, defending champions of the division, that there's a lot of question marks in that team. Can they go for one last ride this season? The Bengals, like you mentioned, they're just young. We'll see what they can do. They have some different good pieces, but maybe their coach is on the hot seat. Maybe he's not. But to get right into the division, let's talk about the team that won it last season. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is the team that started off undefeated, and they were undefeated for a while. But for some reason, a lot of national media, they weren't giving them that credit. They weren't the best team. People were like, no, the Chiefs are still definitely better. And then rightfully so, because towards the end of the season, the Steelers start slowly digressing. And then in the playoffs, obviously they get eliminated by the Buffalo Bills. But this team brings back a lot of the same talent. It obviously starts at the top of Ben Roethlisberger, probably his last season. Does he have the juice to get it done one more time? I think he's going to be determined to get it done. He has tremendous receivers, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and Juju Smith-Schuster. That's a good receiver group right there. Three good guys. They complement each other really well. Deontay working short, Chase working deep. Juju can do a little bit of both, primarily best out of the slot. They go and get Najee Harris at running back to return to maybe what we thought of Steelers of old, which is power running, maybe working the play action, getting the ball to their players, maybe a new tight end and Pat Freiermuth who steps up. So how do you see the Steelers shaking on offense this season, RJ?
Yeah, this definitely isn't the Pittsburgh Steelers of 2008. This team has it's regressed. Ben Roethlisberger is a shell of what he used to be. I personally don't think that Ben Roethlisberger should play this year. I thought he should have packed it up after last year. I thought it should have been over. But obviously with that contract situation, it would have been dumb for him to sit out, honestly, or to retire at that time. You mentioned this team started, 10-0, 11-0. Did anybody think they were the best team in the league? Because I definitely didn't. I absolutely – I said it on one of our prediction shows, this team will not win a playoff game. And sure enough, they host their first round game against Cleveland, and Cleveland goes in there and just smacks them. Big win for the Browns, showed that this team is on the come up, and you're going to have to respect them. This Steelers team, man, I get it. They're returning a lot, and this was a good team. You're adding Najee Harris. On paper, this team should be good. They should be in the mix for the division, definitely a wild card, all that. But I just think at the end of the day, there is a lot of weight on Ben Roethlisberger's shoulders. He's a big guy. He can carry it. But I just don't think he's the Ben Roethlisberger that we've seen for the past, 15 years or however long he's been around. So I actually think the Steelers, even though they have talent on that offense, the guy that's supposed to get them the ball, man, it's going to be kind of tough.
Yeah, I misspoke too. I said that they lost to the Bills in the playoffs. They lost to the Bills in like a Monday Night Football game late in the season, but they lost obviously the Browns in the playoff game. But yeah, I think it all starts with Ben Roethlisberger. I think I like a lot of the options on this team. I like the receiving group. I like Najee Harris. It's just, can Ben Roethlisberger step up and find some old form to be great? Because he wasn't horrible last season, but he definitely wasn't tremendous last season, which is probably what they needed him to be for them to go far into the playoffs. They stumbled at the end. Their defense was phenomenal. They still have a lot of great players. TJ Watt, Mika Fitzpatrick, they lost Bud Dupree. but they brought back Melvin Ingram. We'll see if he can be a great guy for them. But I still like a ton of parts of this defense. I like a lot of part of this team, but for me, it starts and ends up Ben Roethlisberger, and if he can be consistent. And I think they need to find a run game with Najee Harris. They struggled the past 2 seasons with James Conner to truly find that great run game. I think Najee can unlock a tremendous part of this offense for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think having Najee Harris will definitely help Ben Roethlisberger kind of turn the clock back a little bit. I just wonder how much, because he's going to need to be very good to kind of bail Ben Roethlisberger out, in my opinion.
Yeah, probably. So we'll see what happens with them. But this division isn't going to help them at all because I think everybody else in the division is improved. They're still really good. So we'll see if the Steelers can finish first place again this year. I think it's going to be hard. I think they have the talent to do it. It's just you have the consistency to do it, and we're going to have to see that with this football team. In the preseason, they played pretty solid in the preseason. I like the little things I saw out of them. Their schedule though, they play some good football teams this season. They start off with the Buffalo Bills. Then they ease in with the Raiders and the Bengals. They play a couple of different good teams this season, but they play the Chiefs and the Ravens. They play the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Browns, and the Ravens to end the season. That is a horrible stretch for them. So we'll see if they can get out of that. But that's a very, very hard stretch for any football team. And if you're trying to get into the playoffs and win a division, when you got to go through teams like that, and they play the Titans before that stretch even starts. So that's a really horrible stretch for any football team. So, but if you can win those games, that's a lot of momentum, but their season could get derailed right there, stop right in their tracks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're declining, and there's a lot of teams that are trending upward. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Steelers have one more run in them or if it's over.
Yeah, we'll definitely see what happens with this football team. I think they have a lot of high expectations. I think their fans definitely think they can go and do it again this season. But to continue on in this division, let's hit one of those teams that should have some high expectations and see if they can continue to grow. And that is the Baltimore Ravens, a team led by Lamar Jackson, a former MVP, super dynamic, probably the most dynamic quarterback in the league with his running and his throwing ability. But the question is with this football team, and it has been for maybe 2 years now, is we know they can run the football. And it's not that I don't think Lamar Jackson can throw. He has a rocket of an arm. It's just, can this offense incorporate enough good passing plays, get the right guys out there for Lamar Jackson to throw to, and then can they execute? I have no doubt in my mind Lamar Jackson can throw the football, he can spin it, but will they have the accuracy and will they have the play calling to do it? Because I think a lot of the past few seasons the play calling's been a little repetitive and it's just been a lot of running. So can the Ravens get over that hump, RJ? What do you think?
Well, also part of that problem is they have a bunch of guys starting at wide receiver that probably shouldn't start at wide receiver. Willie Snead is not a starting receiver in the NFL anymore. Hollywood, yeah, we've seen flashes, but he's not that first-round pick, dynamic Oklahoma guy that we saw. He's looking more like Marquise Brown and not Hollywood Brown. This team did go out and sign Sammy Watkins and draft Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman has dealt with injury, though, already. They don't need him in September. Rashad Bateman is definitely a December and January and hopefully February guy. So I'm not really too worried about that. But with this division, you don't want to lose a couple games and get caught behind. You don't want the Browns to come out 4-0 or the Steelers to come out 4-0, and you're 2-2 because Lamar doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to, and now it's a problem. Now you're 2 games behind these guys, and you're playing catch-up all year. Something that is a shame, J.K. Dobbins going down, tearing his ACL. He's out for the season. Now, I thought he was going to make a huge jump here in year 2. He was going to be the perfect complement to Lamar in that running game, or hopefully Lamar is the complement to him in the running game. But losing him is a huge loss for the Baltimore Ravens. So Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, those guys got to step up, and these receivers got to get healthy, and they got to produce, or Baltimore is going to struggle to score.
Yeah, that definitely was a brutal loss. I was high on J.K. Dobbins this season as you. So now I'm interested to see is, do they dip into the free agent market and go get a guy like maybe a Todd Gurley? Do you go and trade for a lesser known guy? They had a good running back in preseason this year, Tyson Williams. He was a North Carolina, South Carolina, BYU guy. He played phenomenal for them in the preseason, so I'm interested to see if he can get some touches and be that second guy. But they definitely need to find that second running back because for the past few seasons, Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, and last season J.K. Dobbins, all 3 of them, they were a dynamic unit. This isn't a team that's ran one guy into the ground. It's been with Lamar Jackson and been with 2 other running backs that they've been able to have so much success. So for me, they have to find another running back, whether it's Justin Hill, Tyson Williams, Todd Gurley, another free agent, another trade. They have to go get another running back for them to run the offense the way they want to run it.
Yeah, no, I agree. This team doesn't quite have we haven't seen the continuity with Lamar and these receivers yet. So early, you're going to have to rely on those running backs. The pressure is going to be on them in September and October.
Oh, it definitely will be. And, like you mentioned before, you don't necessarily need Rashad Bateman now in September because this team, we know they can win the regular season, but it's been in the playoffs when they get down in the games. Can they throw their way back into it? And we haven't seen them be able to do that. So we'll be interested to see if this season they can do that. And like you mentioned, we got to see how they fix this running back situation. That's such a devastating injury. You hate to see a guy like that, anybody get hurt. But, when you have a guy going in the year two with so much high expectations that can really lead an offense the way he had a potential to as a running back go down, it sucks for them. So we'll see if he can bounce back and if this Ravens team can get back to where they want to be, because this is another team where their fans, I think they can win the division. This is a team that has won the division. So this is a team that normally does. Harbaugh does a great job coaching this team. Their defense is always stout. They're still going to be stout. We'd even talk about that. They still got a tremendous unit over there. I think they're going to be able to provide the difference too early on, play some stout defense, help them win some football games. To continue on this division, let's hit the Cleveland Browns, the team we mentioned at the top of this show. This is a team with a stellar roster. For years and years and years, they just whipped on the quarterback, and they potentially might have found their franchise quarterback in Baker Mayfield. If they have another good season, he's definitely going to be due for a contract. They have likes of him. They have a great running game of Hunt and Chubb. They got Odell on the outside, Jarvis Landry. They got Austin Hooper at tight end. This team is rock solid on offense, on defense. They got freaking Myles Garrett. They got Denzel Ward. They go in to get Jonathan Owusu-Porma in the draft. This defense is also loaded. So how do you see the things shaking out for this team?
This team is they have probably the second best roster in the NFL behind the Tampa Bay Bucks. This Cleveland Browns team, if Baker can live up to being the number one pick, this team can play in the Super Bowl. And I don't think that's a stretch. I think their roster is better than, both teams in the division we just talked about. I think their roster is better than Tennessee's, Kansas City's, all the big heavy hitters in the AFC. This team can be the best team in the AFC as long as Baker Mayfield is on. And he's played well the past couple of years, honestly. I know we started with some questions, some interceptions, some bad decisions, things like that. But, this guy the last couple of years, he's turned it on. And it helps that they have a great roster around him. But, you mentioned offensively, they've got the best running back duo in the entire league in Chubb and Hunt. Odell and Landry, if Odell gets back to being 100% and he gets back to being who Odell Beckham is, that's one of the 10 best receiver duos in the league. You mentioned the tight end, Austin Hooper, definitely a solid tight end. And their defense is just filthy. Their defense is disgusting, and their defense is very deep. This is not a team that, if Myles Garrett goes down, season's over. Obviously, he's one of the best defensive players in the league, and you don't want to see that. But they have so much. That secondary is ridiculously loaded. They struggled at the linebacker position last year, and they go and steal Koromoa from Notre Dame in the draft. I don't know how he fell. I get there was some kind of heart issue or whatever, but man, you got to take a risk on a guy like that. And their defensive line and edge rushers. It's all disgusting. So this Cleveland Browns team, they should be excited. The fan base in Cleveland, they're excited every year, but they should be very, very excited about what this team can accomplish, because I think they can accomplish a lot.
Yeah, I'm definitely right there with you. I think the sky is the limit for this football team. I think last year was their coming out party. Maybe a lot of people didn't expect them to win that playoff game. It was like they made the playoffs great. So maybe, we lose this game, but we're coming back next year. We're coming back ready to go. But no, they win the playoff game and they say, no, our time is now. So now we'll see if they can keep that momentum going and continue to go. Like we mentioned, Baker Mayfield, he's been good. Then, people like to talk about his stats, like he's not putting up anything crazy numbers, but he doesn't have to. The way this offense runs, he just has to do what he's doing. He just has to play his game. He's not a game manager, but he's more than that. But he's not going out there putting up Patrick Mahomes numbers, but he's still playing stable quarterback. People are mad because Odell Beckham isn't putting up the crazy stats he put in with New York. But, if he can stay healthy this season, maybe he gets unlocked and he does a lot more. And you mentioned this running back duo is the best in the league. They stole Kareem Hunt because of his run-in with the law to Kansas City and his line, whatever happened there, whatever led to his exit. It was the benefit to the Browns because now him and Nick Chubb are absolutely ridiculous together. And this, I agree with you. Like this team can go very, very far, very, very fast. And they definitely have potential to win the division this season. If you look at their schedule, they open up with the Chiefs after that stuff, but they have a lot of games on here that you would expect them to win. Bengals twice, Lions, Pats, Vikings, Texans, games like that, you expect them to win. Games like that, they should win. If they just do their job in the division, win 3 or 4 games, they could easily win the division this season.
Oh, absolutely. And I didn't even mention the Cleveland Browns also have the best offensive line in the entire NFL. They've got all pros at just about every position. They absolutely have the best offensive line, and they're going to give Baker time to throw, time to, make those throws that we think he can make. And they're obviously where it starts for Chubb and Hunt to succeed. So having the best offensive line in football definitely helps.
Yeah, this team, for so long we mentioned they were the punchline, them and the Lions, but when you finally get the quarterback and you get the right player personnel people in, the development people, it's crazy what can happen because now this team, looking at the right side up, it's looking like everything was worth it, and this team is definitely going to be very dangerous this season. But to keep it in the state, we're going to finish out with the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is a team that you want to say they're on the up and up. Joe Burrow looked good last season until he tore his ACL. So we have to see how he bounces back. This is a team that, to me, made a mistake in the draft, though. I personally would not have picked Jamar Chase. I personally would have protected my quarterback and got with Penei Sewell. And if I wanted a receiver from LSU badly, I would have used my second-round pick and got Terrence Marshall Jr. But they didn't let to do that. They let to go with another receiver, Jamar Chase, who we've heard he's struggled in camp. We'll see whether that's true or not. They pair him with T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Auden Tate out there at Cincinnati to fill out the receivers. Still got Joe Mixon at running back, but the O-line is still a major question mark. So how do you feel about the Bengals?
Yeah, no, absolutely. If Jamar Chase pans out, because he's been bad in camp and even in the preseason game. That was a pass. I just saw a video today, a ball that he just it was right in his hands and he dropped it. He's definitely struggled. I'm not too worried about it. Him and Burrow, they'll get the old LSU vibes going, and I think Jamar Chase will be all right, but they absolutely should not have gotten Jamar Chase. You mentioned Joe Burrow went down and tore his ACL. Why did he tear his ACL? Because he doesn't have an offensive line that can block for him. He got hit. He tore his ACL. How do you stop getting hit? You take the best offensive lineman in the draft, Penei Sewell. They elected not to do that. They take Jamar Chase. You already had T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, and there were receivers later in the draft, De'Ami Brown, Terrace Marshall. You could have got any of those guys. Instead, you take Jamar Chase. I think that was a mistake. He's going to have to end up being, Randy Moss for this to work out because that offensive line is going to hurt Joe Burrow again. And it sucks because what we saw at LSU is one of the best single seasons we've seen in college football history. And we want to see how it's going to translate into the NFL. And it doesn't look like Cincinnati right now is giving him a shot to prove it. Yeah, you got weapons, but man, if you're not standing up, it's hard to throw a football from your back. So they got to figure that deal out. And it doesn't help that, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Baltimore's defenses are all really good. And that's 6 of your games right there.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't help anything at all if you're this football team. You got to go up against 3 of the best defenses in the league off rip. No one wants to do that. But I agree with you. If you're going to go as far as Joe Burrow will take you, and how far can Joe Burrow take you if he's getting sacked every so often, every other play? So they definitely got to figure out ways to get this offense moving. I think they're going to need to run the ball a little bit more of Joe Mixon this season. I think it's a team that was reluctant to run sometimes last season, and you're going to need to establish a run, even though it's hard the way the O-line is. And if you get down early, you want to pass, but you got to find different ways to protect Burrow. And I think they're going to get creative with that. On defense, they're obviously struggle a little bit. They have some players over. They have Jesse Bates as safety. He's one of the best safeties in the league, very underrated. He's going to do to get his bag soon. They go and get Trey Hendrickson in free agency. So they tried to make a little bit of moves. I think they're still going to struggle to stop some of these other teams on defense, but I don't hate some of the directions they're going. They're trying to get better, which is all that matters. But for me, it all starts and ends, like we just mentioned, with the offense and Joe Burrow. And you mentioned, their schedule. Let's look at it off the rip. Week 1, you play the Vikings, Daniil Hunter. Week 2, you play the Bears, Khalil Mack. Week 3, you play the Steelers, you play TJ Watt. Week 4, you play the Jaguars, you play Josh Allen. Week 5, you play the Packers, you play the Smith boys. It doesn't get any easier just in those games right there. So it's going to be tough for Joe Burrow and company to stay up.
No, absolutely. And I think this year is a big year for Zach Taylor, the head coach. I think he is absolutely on the hot seat. If I had to do like rankings, he might be on the hottest seat. I know Matt Nagy's pretty high up there, but I think Zach Taylor is absolutely on the hot seat. He was hired because he shook Sean McVay's hand once, and it looks like that experiment isn't going to pan out. they're going to have to make some serious strides. Him and Joe Burrow are going to have a great connection together, or they're going to be looking for a head coach next year in Burrow's third year, which is the big year.
It's interesting you say that. There's a guy in particular that is working the NFL now that they want to keep this LSU thing going. They can go on down to Charlotte and tell Joe Brady, can get this whole gang back together. That would definitely be very, very interesting to see if that would be the direction they wanted to go in, if that would be the direction Brady wanted to go in. Obviously, we're just speculating really early because he's not even started yet. But, these are things to look at if they do have a bad season. But I agree with you. Zach Taylor definitely needs to show improvement this season. They need to win, even if it's not necessarily winning football games, there's other ways to show improvement, which is that the offense get better, that the offensive line produce, who stood out on defense, who took their next jump. I think that's just something that gets lost in the game of football a lot of times. We look between wins and losses, but sometimes in losses, there's still wins. And it's like that. I think people overlook that in both college and the NFL, where like good things happen within the season just because you was a football game. You have to look for these things to show improvement. That's how people keep their jobs. So we got to see if Burrow can play the full season. Number one, does he improve from last season? Who on the offensive line improves? If sacks are getting allowed, that's one thing. But if 3 of the 5 guys are showing improvement, then okay, those are 3 guys we can use in the future. And now we have two guys we need to replace versus a whole 5-guy unit. So I think that's going to be something to watch for the Bengals this season. It's such a tough division with a lot of different moving parts for this team. It's who improves and where do they improve to see what happens next season.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be a long season for the Bengals, which most seasons are for Bengals fans. But this is still a team that I think is looking at a top 5 to 8 draft pick, and they're going to have to shore up that offensive line. They just have to.
They're definitely going to have the offense. If healthy Joe Burrow, if they can get some time, they have the offense on paper to put up points with some teams. That's just, they have the consistency blocking, and can the defense make enough plays? Because they have a couple good guys on defense, but is it enough to stop some of these other high-power teams are going to play, and the teams they're in their own division, let alone? But this is a tough division. So who do you see taking it? Because there's a lot of good football teams here.
I'm going to go, I think the Cleveland Browns now, with the injury to J.K. Dobbins, I think the Cleveland Browns win the division. I had Baltimore winning the division because I thought with a healthy J.K. Dobbins, Lamar Jackson, he's got weapons with Rashad Bateman. I thought this team could finally take that next step and be electric. But I mean, losing Dobbins that's tough. I'm going to go Cleveland. I think they win the division. I still think Baltimore comes in second. I think this team has so much talent. I think Lamar is going to look better throwing the ball because he has better talent catching the ball than he's had. I still think Pittsburgh is third. They're not going to be awful, but I definitely think this team takes a step back. I think Ben Roethlisberger shows his age. I don't think they go under 500 because Pittsburgh just doesn't do that. It's been like 17 years since they finished with a losing record, which is insane. And the Bengals, they're going to come in fourth, and it's going to be a long year for the Bengals.
All right. I'm going to agree with you with the Browns right now. I think they can take the next step in the division. Number 2, I'm going to go with the Steelers. You think Ben Roethlisberger is going to stink. I think he's going to play with vengeance this season. I think he's going to find a way to get them that second spot. I have the Ravens finishing third, but I think all 3 are going to make the playoffs, though. I think it's going to be very, very close. I think it's going to be within a game or 2 for these guys. And I definitely see all 3 once again making the playoffs because this division is loaded. Like we mentioned with the NFC West, how they could have 2 or 3 playoff teams. This division can do the same exact thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this division's gonna have 2. Can it get the third one in? We'll see.
I think it can happen, especially this extra week creates a lot of different stuff that's gonna happen this season.
Yeah.
But I think this division is gonna be one to watch this season. I'm very, very excited for it. I know you are. So that does it for us here, breaking down the AFC North division. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for staying tapped into all of our coverage this offseason. Stay locked in with us throughout the season. Every week we're going to come out with our pick'ems, and we're going to break down the previous week, the upcoming week. So stay locked in with us throughout the season on our channel, GMs for Hire. Follow us. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Hit us up on Instagram, Twitter. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tapped in with us throughout the season.